Hello and welcome to the 18th episode of the Gochuucast, and today we have a very special guest, world-renowned Twitch streamer, super cool boy 26. Oh, laugh out loud 26. Sorry, my bad. As per our normal guest, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi guys, I'm SCB. Thanks for having me on. I'm just glad to be here on a new episode.
Very cool. Okay, well,
Yeah.
Today we have a very specific topic, more specific than any of the other ones before, probably. I guess the tier list stuff would be pretty specific, but we're honing in on one specific topic of rezero. Now, rezero among our group of people has been a very heated debate of if it's good or if it's bad. Now, some of that bad was brought upon us by one that shall not be named, who hyped it up so much that everyone started to hate it. I think of like your average shonen fan on Twitter or something, and that's basically what you're dealing with.
Even the entire My Hero Academia fan base.
Basically, goofy fan ruined show for other people because they're too goofy, and so
that's so mean.
It
didn't ruin it for me.
It's the truth.
It's the
It
truth.
didn't ruin it for me. I still liked it.
Okay, they're like the outlier.
He definitely ruined it for people, though.
People were
It doesn't have to
definitely.
be everyone.
I know Ajag was one of them. Definitely.
I've never seen so many people like put off by something
Those
afterward.
people have soft mental, bro.
Because
Soft mental.
it was just like a normal.
You just gotta watch it and draw your own conclusions.
It was just like a show that was there that like generally people liked, and then he started doing whatever, and then the hate came to light, in like hardcore fashion. But anyway, so PK, I guess with season 2 not as much, but season 1 you were not a fan. Well, I'd say it's my favorite series right now. I guess in terms of where all of us are, I'm caught up with the web novel. SCB read Arc 5, but then every manga with the title Girlfriend caught his eye, so he hasn't read Arc 6 yet. And then you two have both watched through season 2 at this point in time.
Correct.
So that's kind of where our knowledge is. Obviously, I won't spoil anything, and neither would SCB for future reference.
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll keep that under wraps, which might make some things a little harder because you might make a point. I'm like, fuck, I can refute that point.
We'll do up to season 2, right?
Yeah, up to season 2.
Spoilers
That's fine.
up to season 2.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So if anyone's listening and you haven't watched ReZero and you don't want to be spoiled,
I don't think they'd be clicking on the Great ReZero debate.
if you haven't watched it, you're right. But here's the thing. Here's the thing I've learned working in business. You always have to say it. Because if you don't say it, you will get shit. Someone in the world is going to just not know anything and somehow end up there and somehow fuck it up, and you'll be in trouble.
They're gonna like fall asleep.
Maybe not with our fan base at this point in time. Well, I'm just saying, no disclaimer. They might come for us one day.
You fall asleep watching the podcast and you end up on this episode. Wake up to a ReZero spoiler. I guess I don't know. Not that anyone would ever fall asleep watching our podcast, of course. But anyway, I guess in order to get this kicked off, we have to start with the dissenting opinion from the three of us. So it's now your problem to make talk, PK.
Yeah. So I watched season 1 of ReZero. I want to say around 2017, probably. It was something I watched pretty early on. And I didn't, at the time when I watched it, I actually had a pretty neutral opinion on the show. I really disliked pretty much every character that was in it, but I like fantasy universes, and so that kind of carried the show for me for a bit, for probably the next year or so. And then I started watching more fantasy universes. And it felt like the gap of how much I disliked so many of the characters in season 1. And how, in comparison to a lot of the other fantasy world stuff and other like world building type shows that I watched, this ReZero season 1 did not give me any of the meat. So like the things that I really liked about those shows. So I had tried to rewatch it probably around 2019. And I just couldn't do it. Characters were not fun to me. I had various reasons why I disliked all of them, and it just didn't feel like it was, giving me all the world building and character development stuff that I really felt like I wanted. There's also
What's
I
up?
didn't particularly like was it Pedal Juice?
Betelgeuse, yeah, Betelgeuse.
Essentially who I would consider kind of the main antagonist of the end of it. Kind of not, but ReZero does that thing where it's like, ooh, we have like a bunch of things that could be the main antagonist.
Yeah, I still don't know we're on arc 7 of 11. I still don't know who the final boss is going to be, so I'm a little goofy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the
So-
beautiful
I don't
part
know.
about it. I love that.
But
Yeah, that's what I
I think in terms of like antagonistic characters, Betelgeuse is probably the one that I would most label as like the bad guy. And I just didn't care for him. I think season 2 did a good job of this because now I think if I went back and watched a lot of his scenes, I would be like, okay, Betelgeuse not that bad. But when I watched just season 1 and only knew season 1 stuff, I just wasn't interested.
That's what I loved Beetlejuice because like he was when you talk about villains, there's gotta be you have to really hate them, and he was just so evil, and you're like, why is he torturing Subaru like this? And it's like, but
he
you don't
felt
get the
like
context with him.
cartoony to me. So
Dude.
He's a
there's,
little
like,
he's a
two
little goofy.
different- there's like two different like very evil characters, right? There's
Sure.
like at least to me, there's like the evil mastermind, conniving, like schemer, and then there's the kind of goofy, like maybe sometimes a little bit of a schemer, but just the goofy cartoon villain that's just kind of wants to watch the world burn.
He literally lost his mind. And that's
Yeah,
he was
No.
literally
I understand
insane. Like,
I understand that. But when I'm watching season 1, and I haven't watched a lot of anime at that point in time, I'm not looking for like subtext and stuff like that. I'm just watching what's on the screen.
right.
He was just a cartoon villain to me.
He is. I can get that vibe.
And I still think to some degree, like if I went back and watched, I would still be like, yeah, that he is a cartoon villain. But now at least I have like the backstory and like the understanding of like who he was.
yeah, I think the context definitely adds to the because I
Yeah,
have him
yeah,
as like one of my
makes sense.
favorite villains like ever probably.
Same. I love
And
it.
I feel
I
like
just thought he was a weirdo.
even without the context, I feel like he's like a thing of season 1 that a lot of people actually liked. Maybe it's just like
Yeah.
maybe because he was just so goofy. Like I watched it with some friends or whatever, and when we got to like kind of towards the end when he was like flying towards Subaru, when he was like in the air with the flying with his hands, but then it showed a shot of the hands not being there because of everyone else's perspective. It was just so goofy. But I feel like that's like his main draw is like you'll look at these some villains that are like doing evil shit. I'm like, oh, that guy's insane. But this guy like literally is insane. Like the goofiest of goofy for a villain. And I feel like that's an interesting draw at first, but then you like contextualize his insanity and it makes it a bit better. Because he's always going on about love. But his like initial love or whatever had nothing to do with like the witch. It just got completely overridden by like Pandora, who I guess is like all the villains are a little goofy, I guess, in like some capacity. Like Regulus is a pimp, and then like Pandora just like exists to like troll people, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, there's still so much mystery about everyone's motive, which is what I love. You just don't know why they're doing things.
It's
I don't know. That's
long
what I
haul
don't
kind
like.
of serious.
Like,
Well,
there's like a healthy amount of mystique, but like I don't know. Maybe it just manifests itself as confusion for me a lot of time. It's just like
yeah, with
I have so many questions, but I feel like even after completing season 2, which I guess is like whatever, like 1/10 of like the actual story,
there's
it's
still
like
so
I have
much
so
content.
many questions. Like, oh my god, I thought like the witches were like the only witches, and then there's like new guys, and then there's just like there's just like a lot.
Yeah,
going
it
on.
does.
It's, like,
It does throw like a ton of
it's
shit
just,
at
like,
you,
so
which
much.
feels like it doesn't help with me like getting into the universe. Because as soon as one question's answered,
there are
you
like
got
20
three
more. Yeah. That's okay. It's complicated, I guess, because it's a long series, and I feel like that needs to be taken into context when like looking at
And it's
everything.
not like that's like unique to ReZero, but I do think that ReZero does it a lot, which isn't like a bad thing. In fact, I would probably say that's somewhat good writing to some degree, but it does feel like I'm never quite satisfied with a lot of the stuff, especially in season 1 when something would quote end or like a character arc would be resolved. It also wouldn't be.
I guess I don't know, because it's long. I feel like for the most part, not every character is this way. Like right now, we're kind of in like the web novel area. Like depending on the characters, some arcs are getting resolved. Like I won't say that the character is, but in arc 6, the author tweeted that like basically this dude is like done developing. I guess like their character is kind of where they're going to be for the rest, and then it's going to probably continue like that per arc, because there's going to be a theme to all the following arcs until like 10 and 11, which I won't say for the because arc 5, once that's done, that doesn't have the theme either actually, but 6 through what should be 9 will follow a theme, and probably a lot of characters will get their arcs resolved, and then we go into like the final phase, I guess, the end game, if you will. But season 2, I guess, to like for everyone who doesn't know what the arc stuff is, because if you're not like a web novel reader, then you're probably like, what the fuck do you mean arc? Whatever, we just had 2 seasons. But season 1 actually covered the first 3, which 1 and 2 were like pretty short in comparison to all the others. I don't remember how many novels they cover exactly, but I think arc 1 was like literally just the first novel. So all the stuff with Elsa. And then arc 2 is the mansion. Arc 3 up until Betelgeuse's defeat, and then arc 4 is all of season 2. So it's like 5 novels per arc, basically, is kind of like the average that we've been going with. But arc 4 was 6. Arc 7 is seeming like it's going to be maybe even more than 6. I don't know for sure, but there's a lot going on.
Can I circle back to what PK said about season 1 not liking the characters?
Yeah.
Sure. See, one thing I think, to me, I like ReZero because all the characters feel
Are kind of
realistic.
shitbags and real.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
No.
Well, because like super, he's like, help me, my
I
mansion's
both
being attacked,
agree
and they're like, you gotta earn it. You know.
I agree if they're also all like children, which like some of them that's fair. So some of it's fair to be like, yeah, this is just like a child mentally, right?
Dude, Beatrice is like the most unrealistic person ever. Nobody in this world talks like her. Nobody like acts like her. Like it's actually like she's actually like my number 1 hated character. I have to say it. I like hate everything about that character. She's just so annoying. If I ever met a child like that, I would like never talk to that person again. Like I would legitimately like it's such an insufferable personality.
She's a 400-year-old spirit, you know.
I don't. Okay.
What about her?
That's what everybody says.
Hold on.
5,000
I mean, imagine how differently like your grandparents act, and versus like you and your generation, and then consider the fact that her gap is like 5 or whatever.
They were not
long.
like.
Okay.
Dude, if I asked my like grandpa, like, hey, do you want to like go take a walk? He won't be like, like points fingers at each other.
She just stays in her library.
Yeah, like okay.
It's not like she's socializing too much.
Yeah, she hasn't like had the opportunity to change much. She's literally been in a library for the past 400 years, just like nowhere to.
Is that realistic?
I don't know anyone who's been stuck in a library for.
No, I'm just. When I mean realistic, I mean like they're not just gonna side with the main character because he's the main character.
Yeah,
they're people.
They have flaws.
For realism.
So like I agree with the take of they have flaws, but I also do not think that season 1 ReZero characters feel realistic either. I'm kind of in between this, where I agree that it's cool that the characters aren't just like model citizens, like the perfect in like what they're supposed to be, but I also don't like buy into a lot of the things that characters do in season 1.
Who would you say is
Subaru's the worst offender?
I feel like season 2 contextualizes that character though.
It does.
And which I also argue that he was a fine character in season 1, and season 2 just adds on to it. But
I feel like Anastasia is one of the most. I don't know how to say that. It's like the most realistic character in the series. Anastasia, that's how you say it. Thank you. She's just so realistic. The way she does business.
Much about her, to be honest.
Yeah,
the way she consoles
she'll
herself
get more
is
involved,
so
like going for it. But she's my ReZero best girl or whatever.
No, she's great.
Yeah,
she's everything. She's looking out for herself. Yeah, exactly. That's what she wants. So everything has to have like an upside for her, which is great. She's not just going to accept your thing because it's the right thing to do. There has to be upside for her. And I love that.
That's kind of like the same for a lot of people, but and then also like she like manipulated Super or whatever when she was like kind of pretending like, you know, I'll listen to you. Let's go get a burger or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then
he was so mad about that.
He just spills all the beans, and she's like, interesting, and leaves. But for Subaru, I feel like obviously like you're gonna he's not likable.
Obviously, you're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to like him,
and that's fine.
And that's like the main point of him in season 1 is you see this guy, and he obviously you don't know like his past or whatever. And I feel like I kind of wish like season 1 it takes a long time for you to like get the context behind why he has like such a hero complex or whatever. But I feel like it's still like worth watching happen, because you have this guy who has a hero complex, and then he gets the shit kicked out of him at the castle by Julius. And then after that, he's like, okay, well, whatever, I can get up from this. And then he gets killed like 20 million times over. And finally gets to the point where he's like, all right, I need more people. And then he tries to get those people, and he gets kicked down basically again because he's trying to go about it in like the easiest way possible. And a lot of it just forces him to kind of like look at himself and be like, okay, I need to like change how I act and get my shit together.
All his growth feels earned, like, you know, because of that.
His growth is it's earned, and then it's contextualized in season 2.
I really disliked season 1 Subaru, but I do think that his growth moments in season 2 were things that even I was still like, I'm glad to see that, you know, you get it now, at least for like certain things, right?
Not even just season 2, like season 1, like at the end of it is when he gets it together, and you obviously it's for like the end of the arc or whatever. But yeah, he's a character that like hasn't stopped growing, even now in arc 7 he's still doing stuff. Because his I think what I like about ReZero a lot is, even though he has grown, like his relationship with Rem is something that like initially you can look at and be like, okay, that's like a good thing for him, but really it's kind of like toxic for both of them in a way.
Very toxic for both of them.
Yeah, like, and that's kind of like what's being focused on more recently with Super, is he has to kind of, especially with like Rem being gone, like even by the end of season 2, you know, she's still knocked, she's still asleep. So it's like something he really has to focus on becoming more of himself, because it was her speech that kind of like got him back up. And so now he has to cope without having like that emotional support pillar, and he has to like build himself instead of like her image of him.
Totally. No, it's such a real thing. And even like in season 2, he like wasn't relying on Otto, and then Otto like got really mad at him, and like
Otto is the best character.
That's why he's like, I'll help you, dude. He's like, you know, Super tries to do everything himself.
The classic mid-anime slap the main character and get them back to their senses.
Yeah, it's like it makes sense that you want to do everything alone, because it's kind of like he circles a little bit back to... That's
kind of how he's always tried to operate to some degree. He like has lapses in that moments where he's like, okay, I need people, but he also, to that point, always tried to act alone.
Yeah, like with ReZero, with Return by Death, the author uses it differently in like every single arc. And so like arc 1, obviously, is he discovers his power. Arc 2, he starts to use it a little bit for investigation, since he keeps getting killed or whatever. He's like, all right, you know what, I'll do some snooping, try and figure this out.
At least do something.
Yeah, and then arc 3 is kind of like the despair moment, where he just keeps getting fucking killed over and over again.
Yeah.
And so you get to arc 4, and it's kind of like he needs to he starts to like purposely abuse it, and so he gets to this point where he thinks he can do everything himself. He's like, all right, I'll keep dying, eventually I'm gonna fix this. Like, there's no real time limit on it, especially after Echidna tells him that it's probably going to be like an infinite amount of tries that he has. And so he feels like he has an infinite amount of time, and that he can eventually just fix this. But obviously it starts to get to him.
Well, I think the whole point of Arc 4 is that he stopped relying on Return to Death so much towards the end. He's
that was like a big thing that came up.
The first half was like, okay, I'll abuse the fuck out of this. But then by the end of it, he's like, okay, I cannot continue to like use this all the time. Exactly. And so it's you know, it's interesting, but it's also kind of he gets kind of stuck in a way at the end, because Roswaal, there was like a translation error. So at the end, Roswaal just kind of like has a chit chat with him, and it gets completely glossed over because of the mistranslation. But Roswaal told Subaru that like, okay, you've made your commitment now that you're going to save everyone. And so if anyone ever gets lost that's like important to our group, I'm going to kill you, and then you're going to have to restart. or not that he kills Subaru, not that he kills Subaru, but that he kill everyone, and then Subaru would have to restart. Yeah. Because even though Roswaal, he made his he has like the oath or whatever, so technically he can't harm anyone, but if he does, he'll just die. So he's willing to like kill himself basically to get Subaru to restart.
I kind of like that he's not necessarily holding him accountable, but he's basically setting up terms like, okay, you want to do this, then I will, force you to do it.
Yeah, he's like, if you're gonna shit on my idea, then you're gonna have to like go through with yours. This is a choice you made.
And I'm gonna force you to go through with yours. I do like that.
Yeah, Roswaal is like, he's not an enemy, but he's not an ally either. He's just kind of like, he has his goals that he wants, and he lost the bet, obviously, so he has no choice but to kind of side with them.
I think the other thing with season 1 Subaru for me a lot was when I watch anime and like look at anime characters, I think I grade characters in my head a lot on like merits and demerits. I think season 1 Subaru every time it seemed like I would be like mentally giving him a merit, he would also be getting a demerit, like the next scene in a lot of cases, or like shortly after that.
Yeah,
and so it felt like a little bit of a roller coaster for me with him, where it was like, I want to like you, and you give me these hints of, that I should like you, but then immediately you do something that makes me like, nah, this one.
That's why I love him as a isekai character.
Yeah, he's not fair,
like but it's like it works both ways, right? There's some people that are gonna like that and be like, yeah, that's people are like that, or stuff like that. And then there's me who's like, nah.
You compare it to someone like Kirito, and it's like,
but it's still cringe to me.
So
I think it's fine to like not be interested in that type of story, but I also don't think like you can take away from the show by saying that it's like the boring thing. Like, you can be bored and uninterested in something, but like some people like math. I think math is boring as shit, but some people like are going to competitions for it, and
I don't know.
Someone's gonna be a teacher of math somehow. They have to like it, and so it's just different interests for different people. And I don't feel like, because it goes beyond, it's like an objective character thing as opposed to like a like or a dislike. Like OP characters are like, they're not a good writing thing typically, but people can like them. It's just how that is, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I agree, but I disagree, because if I were out here advocating like, nobody watch ReZero, Subaru's the worst character ever, like making statements like that, then I would agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, like I don't think.
But for the most part, this is just my like what I experienced, what I took. I watched it.
Yeah, I get what PK's saying,
and I moved on.
If season 1 in a vacuum, you can have those like opinions on Subaru because you have no context. It's just.
I'm not
and that's
saying
like my
wrong.
big thing is I am trying to like separate my season 1 and season 2 opinions. It's not that too much has changed. It's just season 2 generally, all of the characters got a little bit better for me. So it's one of those things where it's I remember how I felt about a lot of these characters in season 1, and I think that in the context of this debate, it's important to have the voice that's like, this is like the downside of the way that the story is written, whether it's justified or not. These are real things that.
And you mentioned, like, he gives you like little nuggets of like, oh, maybe he's doing things.
He does give me those moments where I'm like, you have potential.
Yeah, that's kind of like, the whole point is like, he's not a bad person. Like, you look at him and it's just like kind of like the difference with like Mushoku Tensei, like where Rudy is like an absolutely shitty person. Like he is an absolutely terrible person. But like with Subaru, you feel a little more patient. Sorry, you feel more patient with this character because like, okay, he's not a bad person, but he has problems, obviously. So he's like his hero complex that he develops because he's like, oh, I have this special power. Everyone, like, people, if I was not here, shit would have gone down and it would have been a problem. But I'm here, and so things are fine. And so he develops his complex because of kind of his issues that were shown in season 2 with like his dad and never being able to like live up to him, and basically completely collapsing as a person and eventually being like a shut-in. And so when he gets this new opportunity, he tries to grasp it, and it ends up completely breaking apart, and he breaks down again until he realizes that
it's almost like mentally, like you look into the psychology of it, it's almost like mentally he tries to like justify why he is in this situation to begin with. And that's kind of where a lot of that hero complex comes from. In that a lot of characters do that type of thing where it's like, oh, I must be special because this happened.
Yeah.
Which is kind of true because they're usually the main characters of these anime, but it's also not true at the same time because they always get punished for those types of thoughts.
Can I just throw in one more thing about like the characters being realistic? Like, remember how PK, you were saying Otto's your boy, right? Like he's the man in season 2. People forget in season 1 when he figured out that Subaru was like the reason they were being chased by the white whale. He threw him out of the carriage and like let him die, which is great. Which is that's realistic. Like everyone would do that if you knew what the cause of like you being chased was. You would. It's just a human reaction, but no one holds that against him because it's he's a good person, which is just great.
Good person.
He did a bad thing, but
yeah,
exactly.
And he did die for that afterward, which is a little unfortunate.
He did, yeah. Which was just funny.
That's probably all I really have to say for Subaru. I think season 2 gave him a lot of the moments that I wish I had gotten earlier, and I know Subaru was always meant to be a slow burn character, and a lot of people accepted that, but I think the burn was a little too slow for me.
No, for some people it's a lot.
That's why I took such a long break from ReZero until eventually being like, okay, I'll watch season 2.
Yeah. No, because he really does make a fool of himself in season 1. And it's hard for some people to watch too much for some people. Like, I can't watch this anymore. It's just this person's so pathetic. And, like, it makes people.
I don't think Subaru is that bad.
Neither do I.
Yeah, I was fine with it.
Okay, dude, just hypothetically, if you were put into his position, would you be stronger than him? No, you wouldn't, dude.
I don't necessarily think I'd be stronger.
No, you or like less pathetic, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah,
like
I feel like I would be less pathetic.
No way, dude.
The worst thing he does is the night.
Those deaths over and over, you'd be like most 99% of humans would be like traumatized. Like
but I think people's problem with it is like when he says he's like Amelia's night.
Like his outburst at the castle was like the big cringe moment for a lot of people.
This is a good transition point for me because the other thing with season 1 that I thought was really bad for me was just all of the romance plot lines, and there's a few random ones that float in there, but Subaru and Amelia and even Rem and Subaru were both two romancy plot lines that they had, and I didn't particularly like either of them.
I think that's also, like I said earlier, like
which is a normal take, I think.
Yeah, they're toxic relationships. Like none of them are good. Like Subaru kind of like placed himself on the pedestal at first. Even like his relationship with Amelia now, and his relationship with the Rem, they're both like generally kind of built on some like level of toxicity. Obviously, I think his one with Amelia is in a much better place now. But the one with Rem is still obviously not in a good place because she's like, her character starts off kind of being, she's like, okay, I'm second to my sister. She's the older one. She was born stronger, even though like she's not stronger anymore because of the loss of her horn. But then she kind of realizes like, okay, I don't have to be like below my sister or whatever because of Subaru. But then she puts herself right back into that place and circles back. And she's like perfectly okay with being his number 2, like, romantic option. And so that's
which like I hate that mindset that she ends up just putting herself in so much.
Yeah, and that's kind of like she's used to that, like, and
once
so
again, that's supposed to be that way.
Yeah,
but it's funny that you mentioned. I agree, but it's funny that you mentioned Subaru and Amelia's relationship being better because I remember when I was watching the season 2 developments. I was just sitting there and I was like, Subaru's not doing this on purpose, but this is literally like Stockholm syndroming her. Like not in a nefarious way, right? And it's not him doing it on purpose, but a lot of the stuff he was doing and kind of orchestrating both like on purpose, but mostly accidentally was very like not manipulative, but it could have been manipulative.
Like what do you like?
And I remember
accidentally like because bringing her to the sanctuary trapped her there, obviously. But is that like what you're referring to? What would you mean, like
I
the
don't remember
Stockholm
specific
syndrome?
ones. Like a lot of the conversations they had, it kind of like him obviously knowing ahead of time like things that were going to happen and how they were going to happen, which is like the natural like state of him having his power, right? Like that's just who he is. That's why I say it's not on purpose, but it was a lot of like seeing Amelia's kind of like general feelings for him and the way that they changed in the way that like he didn't make them change, but he caused those changes, I remember thinking, like, it's not a bad thing, but it could have been done almost the same way in a very toxic manner.
I feel like the whole thing kind of was toxic from like the start, though, because you see like through the loops, where at first he goes into like the trial or whatever, and he gets out, and he's like, "All right, you know what? You can't do it. I'll fucking do it. If you like you are too scared to do this." And obviously she didn't like that. And then he continuously, I think he tried to say it again, and then eventually he came around. And he's like, "Okay, she needs to do this for her." But eventually, like I said, their relationship is still toxic because she really relied on him, even if she.
And maybe it's just those undertones that made me feel that way, because like I don't expect it to be a perfect relationship from here out. I do still think that you're right that there is some toxic things to that, and that's probably why when I saw those scenes, I was like, just a tad bit of Stockholm.
Yeah, the problem is Amelia is like mentally a child in a way, so she is mentally a child, right? Which is so another Subaru.
Yeah, and
it's another thing that I think in season 2 I understand more about her than I did when I watched season 1. Which is kind of how fragile mentally she is.
And that like show toxicity as well. It's like I think episode 11, maybe it was the end of 10. I can't remember for sure. I think it was the end of 10. Where he gets back and she's like mentally insane because Puck was already gone and has been gone for like the entirety of the season or whatever, and then he leaves, but she didn't see the letter he left or whatever, and so she goes mentally insane, and then obviously it's kind of like can't remember if the episode referred to it as not, but their first kiss was, not obviously in the tunnel or whatever to the Rie Takahashi song. It was when she was mentally insane and he had just been like eaten alive by rabbits or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's kind of like a show where she was like super reliant on him, even though she was kind of denying his help earlier. So yeah, the relationship was very toxic throughout season 2 until the end, where she kind of like gets her backbone. Because she's one of the strongest characters in the show, but it's just she has to get there first, like mentally, in order to make more use of it, I guess. Which is another thing I like about the show is that like, in terms of strength, like the show, what I like is the power scaling is like very baseline. You will beat the fuck out of whoever you should beat the shit out of, unless there is like a specific reason that you can't. Like Puck, obviously, he has his like beast form or whatever, but he can't always go into that. And so he's not going to 100% win every battle. Like he kind of struggled versus Elsa in like the first whatever, when he is like very much so stronger than her in every capacity. But he, he's on his like mana limit or whatever, and so he can't beat that. And the author made a point to that as well with like in season 1, like let's say Subaru went into Elsa and she threw a punch and punched him in the face and then he killed himself. He went back and he dodged that punch. She'd do something else that he wouldn't be able to react to. He'd never win, no matter how many moves he predicts. Because in the end, she's just stronger and faster.
And she would just beat him.
Yeah, she just has the advantage. No matter how many openings he tried to make, he's just that much weaker than her.
Well, that's the great part about ReZero. Like you said, like if someone's stronger than someone, they just beat the shit out of them. But there's also the opportunity of so much strategy because everyone's got their own powers and there's so much you can combine, which is just great.
Except for like
you see it more.
For like Reinhardt, he'll never lose. Like he's like he's guaranteed. Yeah, he won't always win, but he'll never lose, which is like a goofy part of his character. But
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Reinhardt.
That's like okay.
Like when I see him do anything, he'll be my goat. But I haven't seen him do anything really. So
okay, this is my biggest complaint. Maybe not biggest complaint. I don't know. Well, am I the ReZero hater now? I don't know.
I think you've been a bigger hater than PK has so far.
Okay, big complaint, and maybe this is a remedy by having like X amount of novels. But oh my god, the amount of characters that are just like there for like 2 episodes and then like never appear again is like. It's gonna make me mad.
I actually do agree with this because I watch a lot of like these.
Dude, where's Julius Caesar? Where's Reinhardt? Where's like?
Yeah, well, Arc 4 took place all within one area with like.
Yeah, so they can't be.
This is like the main crew that you're dealing with.
Yeah, but I need to know where the other guys are, bro.
All right,
they come back.
You'll get the main guys and the other guys in the next season.
I think Spat's point there. Also is
whatever the
a lot of shows that'll introduce a lot of characters like this will introduce the character and then give them like a mini arc or something.
Yeah,
to,
we
like,
talked about we talked about like the Mickey Mouse episodes for like some characters.
Yeah. And ReZero kind of really liked in a lot of like the later season 1 stuff to kind of like toss characters at us and then be like, just remember this person.
I mean, that's
at least I felt like it did.
Yeah, but
it is the what's
Reinhardt. Like, what does he do? Like, he comes in. Okay, so like, okay, I understand. Like, people can have mini arcs. That's like totally fine. Like, whatever. It's just like an anime thing or whatever, right? And like, anime characters appearing early and then like appearing later because they have some significance. Like, cool. I don't care. The like issue I have is like Reinhardt like appears as a hero in like episode like 3 or 4 or whatever the entire anime. He like saves Subaru at the first like encounter with Elsa, right? Like it was like a thing, right? And then it's like, okay, like as a watcher, I'm like, this guy is like important somehow. Maybe like Subaru's gonna like eventually like the finale is gonna be. My initial thought was like the finale is gonna be he's gonna like fight this guy at like the end of the anime and it's gonna be like a 1v1 or whatever, something like that. I don't know, something ridiculous like that.
Or it's gonna be.
I thought this character was like important. Like if you save the main character, you have to be important. Not some freaking extra, bro.
He isn't. He is. I mean,
important. He is important.
He is? Okay, where is he, bro?
He's like you saw him technically in season 2. He's chilling, waiting for his like moment to come. Okay, so that's like PK said, or maybe it was Svet. No, it was Svet that said like there's a lot of novels. Like on my shelf, I have 19 right now, I think, and that's just what's English translated. The Japanese novel is over 30, and that's just the mainline stuff. There's 5 EX novels. And that's not even counting all the web novel content, the what if stories, all this other shit. It's a big fucking universe, and I mean that's what I love. That's why it's my favorite series. I didn't have it in my top 10 anime, but because I like it in text form more, just because of the detail and how much there is. But there's a lot, and so yeah, there's gonna be times when you see a character and you're like, okay, where are they now? They will get their due. You will see every character you've seen like through the first 2 seasons again.
You're so eager.
You just gotta. It's like so. Yeah, it's like, and they're not going to get like the mini arc or whatever. They're going to get the full kebab. You know, each arc is 5. Each arc is 5+ novels, so it's like it's a guaranteed 2-core season for every single arc, essentially. And so you're going to get a lot of time with these characters eventually. It's just right now, arc 4, like you can say arcs 1 through 4 are kind of like a prequel to the story almost, because like I'd say arc 5 is when shit gets real for the most part.
And is arc 5 the arc after season 2, or is it
arc directly after?
Season 2 was arc 4 in its entirety. Okay. So season 3 onward, like season 3 would be arc 4, arc 6 season 4 onward. Yeah, season 3 would be arc 5, which is 5 novels, I believe. It should be novels 16 through 20, I believe. So yeah, it's like you'll get everyone. They'll be back.
Yeah, but it's like you introduce a character and then like don't not even mention them for like so long. It's like I don't know. I just feel like that's like
there's not really,
not relevant to the story at the moment.
If you were being murdered like, by I think if you introduce a
character, like it, at least in the background, they kind of have to like I don't know, like a shot of like what they're doing in the background. Like, are they legit not relevant at all for like the entire thing?
You kind of got that a little, like you like see through like Subaru's trials or whatever, like. You get to see some of Reinhardt, you know, he's not gone. He's still important, and you see his strength where he literally one-shots Puck with his sword. But
see, I agree with Spat that ReZero does this, but I think I'm more on your guys' side in the sense that, like, it doesn't concern me.
It's not that they're...
I just think it's irresponsible to, like, leave readers in the dark for so long about... Or readers or, like, watchers, whatever, like, in the dark for so long about a character... That was like insignificant to begin with.
I guess my counterpoint would be I feel like it did this a lot with like the candidates through season 1, but like
yeah, and I think that's
also know that like we're gonna get like candidates shit. So it's like I care because I want to know about the candidates, but I also feel like it wouldn't make sense for us to know everything about like all 5 candidates, all their friends and everything.
Yeah, so. I said I didn't want to say it earlier, but I thought about it more, and it really doesn't matter. But like every candidate will have an arc, at least. That's kind of like what's going on right now. Like arc 6 started through whatever. Every candidate has like.
I hope so.
They're like they're not like.
I don't even remember the candidates are. To be honest, I legit don't remember.
You have to like think of it that
the candidates are a
really long story.
Yeah, like it's not to like ReZero's detriment or anything. Maybe it's not for you to like have a long haul like this.
I mean, that's fine for it to be long, but I just think like
you have to put it into context when you're watching the show.
Characters have to be like maybe it's just like philosophy of writing or whatever. But I feel like if characters are introduced, they should be like very immediately or in the near future impact. Like, okay, let me give you an example. Let's say Reinhardt. Let me give you an example. If Reinhardt is relevant, very relevant. Let's say his own story. 2 seasons or whatever, 8 arcs from now or whatever, right? Let's just hypothetically say that. I don't know that. You guys probably know that.
Mm-hmm.
Why not include Reinhardt closer to that? Why not introduce him? Sorry. Why not?
Because then you have
What is lost?
There's
in season 1 and
like what's
1?
funny is that I think the real answer, not the narrative answer, is that he's too OP for us to bring him to any of the stuff that we're dealing with right now.
No. I'm asking what is wrong with not introducing him in season 1? What is lost?
He's the one who gets them out of the Elsa situation.
What if you write it in the way where it's someone else?
Like Rosewall or something.
Like so,
but then somebody else who's immediately relevant.
But then he doesn't have the relationship with Subaru in any capacity. Like you can bring it in later. Right. It's gonna feel it's just gonna feel weird if you try and do it like a million years later. Like ReZero will bring in characters that are only like relevant for like a little bit. Like they brought in like all the little elves or whatever in fucking season 2. Obviously these clone elves aren't gonna be that important.
Clones, a freaking lowly army.
Yeah, the little 02s.
Yeah, but like basically, I feel like especially in a long series, it's weird to just bring in characters, have them there for a little bit, and then they're done. Like
get rid of them.
So it's not that like I mentioned, like you mentioned anyway, that he's gonna have his arc, and so that doesn't mean he's gone for every other arc. Basically, like arc 5, I would say like you're going to see a lot of characters again, and all of them are going to have some amount of relevancy, which worries me a little bit because White Fox isn't the greatest studio, and season 5 is going to be the most action, or not season 5, arc 5 is like the most action-packed part. So you'll see a lot of characters, and you'll get there's a lot of like backstory for some characters as well that you'll get, and that's why you have to introduce them. You show them, and everyone has like their preconceptions, but then you start to get like there's a character in arc 5 that a lot of people there's 2 characters in arc 5 that a lot of people don't like. One is just universally hated and we don't talk about her, but the other one is a character that everyone's like, oh, what a dick at first, and then like later on everyone's like, oh, he's just a realistic character. It's kind of like the Subaru thing, except this guy's even bigger of an asshole. But it's just like character circumstances, and you wouldn't care as much about this guy if you hadn't met him like at that moment, but he's having like a more important role more recently, and so if you just bring in this dude you don't know anything about, how do you develop that character if there's not like any preconceptions? I guess you would just have to focus too much on people in an arc where maybe you want to focus on them a little bit, but you get some of the dirty work done early instead of having to force it into the story.
I also think the other thing, like I have read and watched a lot of like long running shonens and stuff like that. And ReZero isn't really a shonen, but this writing style is very common in a lot of long running shonens. And I think like having those characters that you know are going to be important later is one of the things that really gets people to buy into long series like this, because you have something to be excited for later. I think
Hunter x Hunter does that
you know about. Yeah, Hunter x Hunter does it a ton. One Piece does it a ton. I would say like any of the big shonens you can think of, or big, even like just long running stories in general. Yeah. So like Reinhardt, for example, is like, yeah, I'm not going to see Reinhardt do anything anytime soon, but they're going to give me little bits to remind me that like, yeah, Reinhardt's around, and just keep getting me a little more excited every time I see him for the fact that like, oh, is he gonna be Pog today?
Yeah, it's just you're in for the long haul basically with the series.
It's like when they introduced Ho in episode 1 of Pokemon.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and then you don't get Ho
exactly
until
like
next
when they introduced Ho.
But yeah, no, basically like I understand where you're coming from. Like, you want to see these characters do things, but like take for like Anastasia, for example. Like, you had to you couldn't even fucking remember who she was, but she's like one of my favorites. It's just,
I still barely remember who she is.
She's the Russian purple haired looking one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But
I think of the candidates, she is the one that I like know / remember the least about.
Vaguely.
Yeah, but like and you mentioned that they didn't really like play, that they need to play like an immediate role. I would say literally everyone played an immediate role. I'd say with like their introduction, because you had Reinhard. You meet him pretty early, but he plays his immediate role by.
I mean, like an immediate role. I just mean like
Elsa. Yeah.
He didn't make.
He had like one thing, but he didn't have like a after that. It was like, I don't know. It's just like I just don't know anything about him.
Well, then eventually you see more. Like, okay, I would say, you don't know like too much about him, but you know that like he's that motherfucker, right? Like he's a very
strong.
Yeah, he's extremely strong. And then you meet him later in at like the castle or whatever, where he has his own like motivations or whatever with Felt, who gets brought in, who didn't have like the most immediate impact, but now she's a candidate. And she kind of had an impact, I guess, 'cause she was the one who like started the story kind of by stealing the douche Mickey, the medallion from Amelia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then you get all the other candidates, and they make their impact pretty quickly after by, when Subaru's trying to get help from everyone. Like Krush kind of like, she's like the justice one, I guess, where she has a strong sense of justice, I guess, and she's like taking care of him. And eventually joins like the fight against the white whale and stuff, and then season 2 loses her memory, and then she's kind of like out of the picture for right now. But then Anastasia, she sends in her army with like Julius and stuff to help fight. I'd say Priscilla probably has like the least impact immediately, because she did sneak super into the castle, I guess, after being introduced. And then, then the only thing after that is she like kicked him or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, the orange haired big boob one.
The feet one.
Yeah, the feet one. Yes, the feet one.
Feet one.
Which
also,
I was like a scene.
Yeah, there was just remember when maybe not, but she was like Subaru was begging her for help, and she's like, all right, lick my foot if you want my help.
Yeah,
and then he tried to lick the foot. She kicked the shit out of him. She's like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? But
that's I do remember that scene. Now that you mention it, that one was actually one of the ones that I did laugh at, and I was like, this stupid motherfucker.
But yeah,
but it was like funny.
And then Felt didn't really have any impact with what's it called afterward, because I will say Reinhard, he's very overpowered, but he has his limitations. He's like very like he's a hero, but he's only doesn't really do his own thing. He kind of like lets the state control him basically, and because of reasons, he didn't join the fight against the white whale. He's like very restricted by law. Like he can't leave the country or anything like that.
Yeah, if they let him loose, it would be horrible. He would not be about it.
It's just basically.
I do think I felt like on the subject of Felt, because we were talking about her, I did feel a little disappointed in the amount of Felt that we got in season 1. Mainly because she's kind of one of the first characters that we really see extensively at the beginning of the season, and then she kind of pee poofs for a little bit, because obviously we're doing all the other shit. And then the candidate stuff happens, and you get a little bit more of her again, but then she like pee poofs again, which is understandable. But I do remember when I started watching, thinking like, "Oh, this girl's gonna probably be like, a character that we'll see, be with the group and stuff like that." And I remember I liked Phil a decent amount, and so when she kept just like running off and doing her own thing, I was like, "What the hell?" I wanted her to be in the crew.
Yeah, it's I fucking hate, this is why I like the novel and stuff better, because there's details that like I don't know if I can say, because I don't know exactly. Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything, but I'm like, okay, because there's something with like Priscilla's camp, for example, Orange Hair, like there is an impact that's had on like the world and stuff in the novel, and they need to do it. They cut it from season 1, but if they don't do it in season 3, I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but they need to reveal a certain thing about that group or whatever. But then there's like something about Felt that also needs to be, because there's like a hint to her backstory, I guess, that's like really big, that I'm pretty sure was cut from like season 1 content. Maybe it's later, Or maybe it's a side story. That's why I'm not going to say anything. So I do not fucking know.
It may have happened and I don't remember it. Or
no, it's not even. It's definitely not in season 1. I don't think they mentioned it. They kind of did, but they didn't mention like specific details about certain things.
But I do think in that way that was like a character that we were introduced pretty early on, and even like later when she shows back up, she has this kind of important role, and then it's like, all right, time to tuck her back in the backpack for a few arcs.
I will say, I think arc 5 is the one where it's like everyone's important in some capacity.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's
so,
great.
yeah, you'll get something for everyone to like kind of set up. Like obviously, arc 5 is kind of like the setup for everything that happens afterward. And there's a lot of, I'd say arc 6 is my favorite so far, just in terms of content. But arc 5 gets the ball rolling for everything, and it's it's the setup for all these characters to like move forward where they are.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, because like if you just look at Priscilla, for example, from season 1, you're like, this candidate is just, she has nothing going for her.
She's like such an asshole.
You're just like, I hate this. But then that's the thing. You need to introduce these characters early, so you have your preconceptions, and then eventually with the context, you can, you know.
Yeah.
You can get more attached to the characters and really
it's
learn more about them.
It's kind of like I feel like the thing that ReZero did a lot with season 1 that made me buy out of it, that you're talking about, is it kind of like bought low on a lot of its characters intentionally so it could sell high.
Yes, it definitely did.
Which is fine, but I think it was like with only season 1 out for the longest time. I don't remember exactly what the gap is between those.
It was 4 years.
Several years. Yeah.
For
the longest time, they didn't get a chance to sell, right? I got in stock in ReZero and then was like, nah, I don't think this one is it, and then sold my stock before knowing that, you know, the spike was coming.
Yeah, and that's not like every character. Like you see it most immediately, I guess, with like Cruise or whatever, because when Super goes to her for help, she's like, okay, this person is like pretty chill, maybe they'll help, and she's like, no, fuck you, bitch. Like, and then she denies him because of, you know, a multitude of reasons. Like he's not trustworthy, obviously, because he can't tell anyone about Return by Death. And so he can't explain how he has information and doesn't. She can just kind of like go by what she knows. But like characters like Wilhelm, for example, he's not like, I guess what you see in the there's another fucking thing cut from the season 1. I hate this shit so much. But basically, he's not like the perfect guy or whatever. And so he's like actually one of the most, him and Puck too. Like Puck was like introduced pretty normally in like the anime, but he's kind of an asshole in like written content. And him and like Wilhelm are like really split characters in terms of likability for people who've read. But like Wilhelm, he seems like chill now, like one of those like starts high characters, and then he'll show his humanity later. Puck got all of his other shit cut, and so that's a thing. But yeah, there are characters that you seem to like, but they're not perfect anything. But you just don't get as many of those.
Some of them it'll buy low and then sell high, and then some of them it'll buy high and sell low.
Yeah, it's just easier to have a character who has like obvious flaws first, as opposed to like, all right, here's this old dude who he lost his wife and he's gonna beat the shit out of his whale now, and you're like, oh, that's awesome. But then you see like other stuff, you're like, oh, maybe a little less awesome. Like his side stories especially are kind of like the big part of that, like how he stopped his wife from being like the Sword Saint stuff. There's like context to that you don't really get, I guess. You just know that he's this dude who lost his wife trying to beat up this whale, and so you like him, and he's cool and nice and everything, and he helps Subaru after. But obviously, there's more to it than that. It's not as easy to have those kind of characters, especially when you're trying to like create obstacles for your main character. You can't have too many helpful faces. You need to have mainly obstacles.
Yeah. I guess kind of different topic, but is something I want to talk about that I think applies to both seasons still, at least for, I assume, me and Spatula as just watchers. But the power system and like general like magic and all of that in ReZero is really confusing.
I actually think it's like, it's okay.
It seems consistent. Like I feel like if I had a better understanding, I wouldn't have an issue with it.
I could explain some of it to you now. It's
I didn't even know there was a system, bro. I just see people throwing stuff out.
They kind of just do shit.
It's consistent.
So in the novels, it's much more like baseline, but so here's one of the most confusing things so you know Puck, right? What kind of magic does Puck use?
Oh, this is funny.
I feel he uses ice magic.
So he is he uses ice magic, right? But he is the great spirit of fire. So basically, fire magic in ReZero is less fire magic and more like temperature manipulation.
Temperature magic?
It's just more he goes with the ice side of things instead of flame.
Yeah, this is a good example. Then.
And then there's also what we have with because there's like side magics, I guess. There's like the authorities for like the witches and stuff.
Yeah,
like how Super right now has the unseen
authorities
hand.
I actually get because the authorities in like. There's two different ones. There's the authorities.
There's authorities, and then there's divine gifts or whatever.
Yes,
or divine power. I can't. Divine.
I can't get remember. Those. They're kind of hard to keep track of, obviously, because right now they basically just put the chess pieces on the board with those powers. But you get those because it's basically like any other series where it's like, okay, there's.
It's like a unique ability, basically.
Here's who you know has them, and there's only those 7, right?
Yeah.
And that's
I mean, there's more than that. There's like because there's vainglory and melancholy. You know, the general basis.
I'm just giving the general however many. There's like a limit, but then you get to like so there's magic obviously, and the magic in ReZero feels very loose, but makes sense usually.
The magic makes sense. I would say what I will agree with is that divine blessings are like kind of out there.
Oh, they just throw them out there. Like Reinhardt has like a million of them.
Has so many of them. That's why he's broken. If you can think of it, he probably fucking has it.
I have been told on a few of the random powers that he has, especially like the funny random ones that are like, why does that exist?
Yeah, he has some goofy ass powers. It's because it's kind of like
it's not that I think the power system is inconsistent. It's more of like the power system feels kind of random.
So. The novel, go figure. The novel explains it better.
The novel does it better.
You know how they'll have like prefixes for most of their attacks or whatever. Like Roswell, when he shoots his fireball, will be like Algoa. Well, Goa is like the basic thing, right? But there's the other prefixes. Like, and this got cut for fucking Otto, unfortunately. But Otto can use. There's different like tiers to magic, I guess. And Otto is able to use like the highest tier of Earth magic, while Roswell can use like his big fireball and stuff. And so you have these. There's like 4 prefixes, I'm pretty sure, and I'd have to look it up to remember all of them.
Final Fantasy. Yeah. Final Fantasy's elemental powers are all separated into like
Firaga.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like obviously like Subaru can use or he can't anymore because his gate's broken, but
his gate sucks.
His gate's done for, which the anime like didn't gloss over, but like they did it with visually. It didn't really tell you.
I knew that he couldn't use it. I didn't understand why.
So it's not even just like right? So whenever he used it against Garfield, right, and then stabbed him with the Puck crystal, that's the last time he can use that because his gate is fucked. Which a big thing with that is his contract with Beatrice. It's like kind of the only thing keeping him alive right now, because in the ReZero world you need your gate, and his is gone. Like he fucked it, and so he has no way to like circulate his mana. And so without Beatrice,
do you know that, or is he just like lucky?
He knows that. They just didn't go over the details of the contract.
Detail it. Okay.
Yeah. So like he fucked up his gate, and so he'd get like what's called mana poisoning, because he has no way to like properly regulate this, and so Beatrice has to just take it out of him, and which is good for her. Because dude, there's so much stuff good. Because
he like supplies her with a certain amount.
Because I feel like something
as part of like spirit contract to have her exist.
To have her be able to use magic, and because she can exist without it, but to be able to use magic and stuff.
Because that was like the whole point of the scene where like they held hands and she like destroyed everything.
Yeah, so
in that one scene, I took it as like he was also supplying her with like extra power.
Yeah, and it's like symbolic too because of their friendship and stuff. But
of course.
I think one scene you might be referring to with like the inconsistency in powers is like literally she just takes the rabbits and it's like let's take the bikini bottom and push it somewhere else. That's what she did. That's what she did with the rabbits.
Somewhere else.
But so what that did is it didn't get explained in season 2. She literally used every bit of mana she had been storing for 400 years to do that, and so she's kind of like back to square one. and Subaru is the main thing supplying her.
She's not that OP. She's that one. Yeah.
She's obviously very powerful, but like she can't just take things and push them somewhere else all the time. All the time. That was like, all right, fuck it, whatever. We got to do this because we're done for otherwise.
But then also, in addition to magic, and this one makes sense, but it also like adds to the confusion. There's also, it seems like also like race specific powers and stuff like that.
Can you,
or at least I feel like Rem and Ram, for example, but also
they have their demon horns or whatever.
Garfield and Frederica, I feel like,
and they can transform with these stuff.
Yeah. They have like their like race powers, but I don't know if I'm supposed to like, in terms of the power system, if that's like a separate thing or if it's just like this is the magic that
like,
they have.
It's just kind of like specific
the same system
because like the beast can turn into beast. The demons are demons. Like go figure.
Which they're logical.
Something to know is that
sense.
The average person in ReZero can't like use magic that you're thinking of. They all have like gates, but most of them aren't. They can't use. They're not strong enough to use it.
It's like the idea. Everyone is born with like a certain amount of mana, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that you can like use your mana.
It's awkward, I guess, for some things. And then I will say like the authorities are probably the most consistent. I will say that they're not. From person to person, they can change slightly. Like Subaru's is different than like pedal uses or whatever.
Yeah, I do know that theirs are slightly different. Which
what he gains is different from what they had specifically. But all of them kind of have like some kind of like workaround to them, I guess. And so they're not like no one like Regulus obviously seems broken as fuck right now, and he's very broken. In terms of strength, he's not like the strongest, but his authority is so like insane.
It's amazing.
That
like balances.
You saw what he did to Crush and Rem. Like it's just
like
he's overpowered.
He just like he can pick some dirt up and like shoot at him, and it's just done. Like it's just kind of how he does things, I guess. And then Pandora, obviously, we don't know the details of her authority, but obviously, I would say hers, like not knowing right now, because like people do like power scaling stuff for ReZero to see like who's the strongest. And like Sotelo and Reinhardt are like at the top or whatever, but some people like will leave Pandora out because we just don't know. Like we don't know. Like
just don't have an idea.
Obviously she seems broken as shit, and she is, but we just don't know the extent of that brokenness in comparison to others.
It seems like the series is somewhat consistent in establishing that like no matter how broken a character seems, they always seem to have some like workaround, or I guess weakness is a word I can use, but not necessarily the right word.
I mean, I'd say it's like a general there is a weakness to like every single they have to whether it's like a chink in the armor type of thing, or they have like a personal weakness type of thing.
Can I just ask what were you gonna say, PK?
I was gonna say, which is good because I feel like a lot of series, especially as someone who reads a lot of shonen, a lot of shonens like to write themselves in a corner where you have this OP character and you didn't write a way for you to beat the OP character. So time just click the get stronger button.
No, ReZero does power scaling really well.
Yeah.
I do hate that in show, like, because like the thing with shonen, right, is they always go for like it's like Dragon Ball right now. Dragon Ball, no one fucking knows anymore. They're just like they're like, you know what, you are the goat now. With like,
isn't Goku like supposed to be the most powerful?
No, Goku's not even close to the most powerful. It's so complicated now. There's different universes. There's just like this man child that is like can like delete universes at will. It's so complicated now. It's Dragon Ball Super took the power scaling that was already kind of wonky and then just fucked it in the ass and threw it away.
It's over. Yeah.
Because like in the most recent movies or whatever, like they're Gohan and Piccolo centric or whatever, and then now they can contend with things now, even though they were like useless before. It's just so you have these characters you think are like the strongest in the universe, but it's like no, there's more strong people in the universe. And then they get to like Boo, who is like supposed to be the strongest in the universe. They're like, you know what? Let's just add new universes. And so now you have even more strong people, and then you can go outside those universes. It's just there's too much.
It's so complicated.
You don't have to make stronger characters. You just need to make characters that like have a challenging reason to fight them. Like maybe it's their ability. Like I said with Regulus, he's not physically strong, but his ability is goofy as fuck, and so it's difficult to deal with him. it's just you don't need to make stronger characters, just more interesting ones to fight. SCB, you said you were going to ask something, but then
I was gonna. Do you guys like? I mean, we talked about this a little, but do you guys like the mystery that we have? Like all the little mysteries we have in ReZero. I'll give one for example, so you can like establish one. Remember in season 2 when they talk about Hector, one of the warlock who visits the sanctuary and destroys it.
Mm-hmm.
We figure out that he does the same thing the current Roswell does, where he where he talks and he uses his words.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool because we have no idea why he took up upon that.
Well, we kind of do.
Who's Hector? Who's Hector?
Oh my! Okay, it's the you remember the melancholy dude? I'll put a fucking gif of him. You'll remember.
Put a gif.
I gotta see the.
I do enjoy when series will give you the sprinkles of stuff just to tell you here's something that will happen eventually, and
so
that type of stuff.
I will say with Hector, Puck mentions it kind of offhandedly. Roswell's just kind of imitating him, I believe. Maybe I read too far into it, but Puck in season 2 when he's fighting Roswell, he said, "You're never going to be like that devil because you're only human." And so Roswell kind of adopted his whatever to just okay. And I will say, I still don't know shit about Hector. He's not shown up since.
That's the thing. I love the mystery. That's my favorite part of ReZero.
Dude, I didn't even know his name was Hector. What the hell?
There's so much mystery.
So what I will say, SCB, I enjoy those things, but I don't like to buy into them too much before I see the payoff most of the time.
Right.
Because I've seen it happen in so many series.
I like it because
usually it goes well, but knowing that the payoff can also be very disappointing, I'm always it also sometimes series just don't address some of these things too.
The author did say that by the end of the series, he said it was one of his Q&As. He said by the end, every mystery will be done, and if you don't if you didn't see one of them get resolved, you weren't looking hard enough, I guess.
Which is a really big claim. I kind of
it could be horrible. It could a lot of series do their mysteries terribly, and it's wow, this was not worth it. But I think we have to ReZero let us in good. We have to just take it with that it's gonna work out, and these mysteries are gonna be satisfying when they do resolve.
I like all the theories that come from them.
I agree.
Exactly.
I enjoy theories as much as the next guy. I don't read a lot of ReZero theories or anything like that, obviously, because while I did enjoy
so many
too, I'm not totally
the iceberg
series right now.
Some demon shit.
Everything else, when season 3 comes out, I'll watch it. I'll probably like it. But it's just I enjoy those things happening. I just tend to try and stay very cautious around them.
No, and I don't blame you.
Also, because it could, like Daniel said, it could be forever until I know anything about this guy. I probably won't even remember if I stay anime only and wait for the anime to come out. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
anime only. I don't even know. The author has said his dream is to get it fully animated. Yeah, he wants a full adaptation, but is that going to happen? It's a lot of seasons.
How long
is it going to take? It's going to be long.
Yeah.
There's a strong possibility that that's the type of thing that he doesn't even see completed in his lifetime.
It would need to be
that's a good point.
It would need to be a Mushoku type of thing where a studio is just we are the ReZero studio now.
They're just ready.
Right.
And White Fox is a steaming shithole of a studio right now. They're kind of with studios going in a different direction, so they're dropping all their shows. White Fox just can't handle all their shows, and so they have to they did Gochuucast, they did season 1 of that alone, and they're okay, we need help for season 2, and they're all right, fuck it, we're done, no more. And then they got rid of Goblin Slayer, I'm pretty sure, or at least it's not confirmed they'll be doing season 2 for it. They did the first season of the movie, they're all right, someone else please take this. It's just they're one of the studios that probably shouldn't have this series because of how intensive it is. I think they did a good job for what they can do. They did it during COVID and stuff like that, and they had 30-minute episodes. They went hard. I can see the love that was put into it. It's just
they definitely care.
It's such a difficult adaptation because I would say most people who watched the anime and liked it would be this is great, but even the novel community is this got cut, which is kind of important. There's something in season 2 that got cut that's extremely important, I would say, for future reference. Which, as for a lot of things, maybe we get a director's cut again for season 2 and they put it in there, but Yeah, it's just there's a lot going on, and like the mystery thing, like there's so many theories that spawn from that. The iceberg, obviously, I'm not going to post it because it involves web novel stuff, and so it would be big spoilers, maybe just like to even see some of the conceptions. Like Emilia's mom, who is she? That's like one of the biggest contentions right now, because Emilia is like kind of in like this biggest like shroud of mystery out of any character probably. Just because
there's one particular Emilia's mom theory that I like quite a bit.
I would say
for no real reason.
The one I'm personally with is the Witch of Wrath. She had like
that's the one. That's the one that I know of that I'm like, that sounds fun.
That's one that I think a lot of people are with because no one really fucking knows. As with a lot of like what's behind the seal, which there's a theory that I'm currently a fan of, but that's stuff that'll get that hasn't really been set up too much yet. Not even too much. It just hasn't been set up yet until it got set up in a side story after season or after arc 5, which is a little goofy. At least the theory.
I will say one thing I am curious with is what is the, speaking of the Witch of Wrath, but also all the witches, is
all the witches are like
what the end game is gonna plan is gonna be with the witches. Are we done with them? Are we going to do something?
No, it's a great point.
We do have a confirmation on when they'll show up again. The author likes to talk about things a lot in his Q&As. For better or worse, he's said a lot in Q&As. They will show up later, and there's something cut from the end of season 2 that kind of explains what they're doing. But they'll have importance, and there's like thematic stuff as well. And one of the theories of like what's behind the seal also involves them in a way.
Yeah,
but
because to me, it's like I feel like those are some of the most interesting characters that we kind of just get like a little bit,
because like
for the majority of them in season 2, and then it's like, oh, now they're gone. Maybe see you again later. Maybe not. They're
like all messed up humans in like some sort of capacity. Like Echidna like seems like she's helping Super, but she's actually just after Return by Death. Basically, she wants that shit because that's like the ultimate knowledge gainer. And I'd say one of the most like interesting what if stories so far has been, and it recently got its own light novel, and hopefully somehow it gets turned into anime, but it probably won't. But it's called The Greed If, and it's kind of like what if Super accepted Echidna's contract, and it gets like really fucked. Basically,
I think the fact that stuff like that exists is great, but I also think that like these aren't characters that I want to only deal with in side stories, which you probably agree
there's
with.
Like different, basically the what ifs are like obviously like what if Super made a different choice at this critical juncture, basically, and so it will give insight to the world and the characters. Like, they've mentioned a couple different countries or whatever, like, Kararagi, for example, is something we might not visit all in the main story. But in, like, the if story of, like, what if Subaru and Rem ran away? It's, like, the main, that's, like, the main...
That's where they go off to.
Yeah, it's where they go to. And you get to see characters that may not even appear in the main thing, but, like, show up in other what if stories. It's really, like, interesting stuff. But, you know, yeah, all the witches are like really, really fucked. I guess Minerva's like the weirdest one. I guess like her fucked up whatever is that she beats the shit out of people to heal them. Which is
wait, what?
Yeah, like
Which one is Minerva?
She's the blonde-haired one.
Oh, okay, yeah, the one who's like, okay.
I see.
Yeah, the one who's like, oh, you know, she's Wrath, but she punches people and heals them. It's really like weird. And then like Typhon is like the kid or whatever, and she's like really innocent, but she like touched Super's arm and just fucking rips off.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, it's there was one thing with it was the Witch of Gluttony that we didn't get to see. Like there was one. I mean, remember they're like, don't look into her eyes. Well, Subaru in like I think it was. I don't know if it was in the novel or just the web novel, but he looks into her eyes like a dumbass, and he like starts to eat himself. And so it's like, yeah, and obviously she creates the mob beast or whatever, and she's like, all right, this will feed everyone, but they get the opportunity to eat people as well, because it was a grand idea in her head, but she's so fucked. She's like, well, they need the opportunity to eat too, and so it's fine if they kill people. Yeah, but like all of them are just really fucked in their own ways, and so they're interesting characters. I would say,
and that's why it's like I would be disappointed if they were shelved for even like a long time. Like I assume, well, I won't assume. there's no way for you to answer whatever I say anyway. But yeah. Plus, even beyond that, it's like the end game for them. There's like several interesting routes I could potentially see for like how the whole witch situation is dealt with, like their existence or kind of lack of existence.
Yeah, it's also really like some people like maybe they're the final boss, or like they factor them into like because there's a bunch of like final boss candidates, like maybe Pandora, but maybe Pandora gets dealt with in like an earlier arc. Like you just never know guaranteed what's going to happen, and you can try and predict certain things based off like maybe the Q&As. Because, like, we know which arcs are going to be important for, like, which groups. And so you can maybe guess, like, which villain might be important there. Yeah. There's so much that goes on. And it's not, like, a guarantee that, I think we will get 11 arcs. But, like, Arc 7, which is happening right now, like, wasn't planned initially. But then the author's like, you know what, we need this. And so now here we are, many novels deep into it. And the novel is caught up to the web novel, but I like that the author, he will always keep the web novel ahead. He made like a change or whatever to the light novel from the web novel, and to like he added like an interlude into the next level, but he hadn't done that for the web novel. So like the next day or whatever, he's like, all right, slaps a chapter out, boom, now we're back ahead. Yeah, he likes to write that. I think I can trust this author. Like, you'll see a lot of shows that, like, burn out the end, and we've talked about it, I think, all the way back to the first episode, like, why endings can suck. But, Tappe is an author that I trust because I can tell that he this is his craft or whatever. He's like, having fun. He's having a good time. Because, like, so a novel I read, The Angel Next Door, it had a web novel, but then they're like, okay, what, a company approached him, like, what if we turn your web novel into a real novel? And so he did that, and he stopped working on the web novel, I'm pretty sure. But ReZero, they're like, all right, you know, let's make this a novel. But he still works on both of them. And I really like that. And he writes a lot, and he doesn't write until he's satisfied, which is a big thing. Like, we went for, most recently, it was like months without a chapter when a novel had already released, so he should have been working on it, right? We expect chapters to be coming out. But he takes a big hiatus, and one day on Twitter he's like, sorry guys, I wrote and deleted the chapter like 1,000,000 times, so it's out now. And so I really like that he is going for basically perfection with this. This is his life work, obviously. It's going to be like well over 50 novels by the time it's done or whatever. And so, yeah. Big thing.
Big ReZero guy.
Big ReZero guy. There's a lot. I will say that makes it very hard to get into because of how much he writes. Because
it's a lot. Like if these 2 anime seasons are like only up to like arc 4, right? Yeah. That's like insane.
Yeah, I could only recommend it to someone who knows that they're going to be in for the long haul.
Yeah,
it's a lot, and it's like because that's just mainline. There's so much, and you need at this point. And where we are at the series, you need to read the side stuff if you're reading it, which is like it's a big commitment. Basically, like there are some random side stories that probably aren't too long or whatever that you need to read to like get some context behind why this character reacted this certain way to this certain situation. It's a lot to take in, basically. It's a very long series with a lot of moving parts. I wish some of it was more accessible, like the Greed If novel. You could only get it in Japan if you bought the entirety of like all the different Blu-ray sets for ReZero Season 2. If you got all those Blu-ray sets, then you would be able to get the Greed If novel. And it gets translated, obviously, on our part, but you can't physically have it unless you did that. Yeah. Which I like having the physical stuff, but like for ReZero, I have no other choice because Yen Press. It's the slowest fucking company on planet Earth, and they still fuck it up every time. Even with all the delays, they still get things wrong. But they release at snail's pace, and so I have to, obviously, if I want to not get spoiled, I have to go ahead of where we are in terms of physical copies.
Yeah, it's I feel like when I first read the series. Or not first read, when I first watched the series back 2017, I had thought about wanting to try and read it to kind of like give it a second chance and be like, maybe it just wasn't a great adaptation. But the world is cool, and I like some of the things that they were doing. And I remember trying to find just any way that I could read it for like a solid like hour or two, and it just felt like it was impossible. And so eventually I was like, well, I guess I'll just wait until something else comes out of this.
Yeah, I would say the world is definitely my favorite part, and that's why I like to read it more, just because details. Like, there's small things, like in like the candles or whatever that they use are made of gems, right? And they change color depending on the time of day and like emit however much light. And so it's just like, you can tell what time of day it is based on what color this crystal is. And I think that's just really cool, small details you don't always get to see.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any, I guess like final, we're an hour 20 in, probably wrap soon, but if anyone has any final quips to add, we will hear them now.
rezero season 3 waiting room. I gotta find out what happens to Julius Caesar and Reinhardt.
It's Daniel mentioned it. It's gonna be the most action packed. Like if you like shonen fights, and that's what season 3 is gonna be.
Yeah, it's
gonna be good. No, it's hype.
Yeah, I do. Like I said, I do worry though, because Ufotable, with the Garfield Elsa fight, they did that shit. It's like a dude from Ufotable did that, not White Fox.
Yeah, did not know that.
Yeah, if you like look in while the credits are playing or whatever, you see like Ufotable stuff. Yeah, they helped immensely with that fight.
If they can do that consistently, that would be Pog and probably solve the issue. But also, like, that's not going to be easy if the whole season is like action-packed.
It's like, I've never seen, like, it was a slow start. I mean, literally, like a whole novel, like basically, it's just a bunch of setup, and then shit gets real, and then shit doesn't stop getting real. So it's like literally just a whole season of like nonstop, like, okay, this person's fighting, this person's fighting, this person's fighting, yep, like all at once. So there's, they have to, I don't know how they're going to do it, honestly. Allegedly it's in production based on some leaks, but we don't know for sure. But
I think anything like that is like always kind of in a stage of in production. And that like can mean a lot of things for a lot of
I will say the amount of money ReZero makes, it will get a season 3. It's just a matter of when, because I think I mentioned it maybe in another episode or maybe just an offhanded comment, but Karakawa, their anime department lost nearly 40% of its earnings compared to the previous year because they didn't have ReZero pumping up the numbers. That's crazy. And so obviously they're probably like, and they specifically said that. They literally said, we didn't have ReZero, and so our profits, they're about 40% lower. And it's like, well,
we'll
that's
have
obviously
ReZero again, guys.
That's obviously like, that's basically like, yeah, we'll have it again, because they obviously it's a bunch of money. That Rem merch alone probably fueled season 2, and so
I believe it.
Yeah, then no other anime can have so many fucking, oh my god, the amount of times I've been let down. They're like, all right, guys, we have the whole cast. You can buy tickets to come watch this event. And it's like, all right, guys, this is it. This is season 3. And then they announce a new art book for like the 20th time. They have so many art books. It's so annoying. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the 18th episode of the Gochuucast. This one's a little harder, I guess, for some people to get into if you haven't even seen the series. So I don't know how many more of these we'll do. Obviously based on like specific shows, but who knows what the future holds. There are only so many topics we can do with anime, so it might get to that point eventually. But if
every so often we'll be inspired.
Every so often, you never know. Or we just go back to the wheel. But the good old wheel. But yeah, every Saturday 3 p.m. you will see a new episode posted. If you'd like to go to our audio only links, you can go to our Anchor link in the YouTube description. If you'd like to go to our YouTube, it's just Is the Order an Anime Podcast. Very simple. You can watch either, and it'll be a grand old time. But we will see you all in the next week. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Grade us 5 stars, and goodbye.